Good afternoon and welcome to the Oklahoma City Planning Commission. We're glad that you all are here to join us today. Before we get started, just want to have a few minutes to speak about some housekeeping items. First of all, please take the time to silence your cell phones right now so we can avoid those interruptions. If you are interested in speaking to the commission, there are forms available for you to sign up to speak on any of the items on the agenda. Jared here, I think, has those forms, but just please make sure that you fill those out. We ask that when you address the commission, please remember to share your name and address for the record. Please remember that your comments should be no longer than 5 minutes, and we ask that you avoid any repetitious comments once. I can assure you that if your neighbor brings up an issue, we're concerned about that issue. You don't need to repeat it. We understand it when we've heard it from your neighbor. We'd also ask that if you have a group of people here, that you designate someone to speak on all. If you all share the same view, you designate one person to speak so that we can hear from them and respect everyone's time here. Really, the key to this entire meeting is the golden rule. Let's treat others as we would like to be treated. Let's respect each other and let's respect the process. So with that being said, let's move forward with our agenda and receipt of the minutes from the October 27th meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I move to receive the October 27th minutes.
The motion is to receive the minutes from the October 27, 22 meeting. It's been seconded by
My bad.
Commissioner Govine. Please cast your votes when available. And the motion passes. We're now in line for uncontested continuance requests.
We have item 23, SPUD 1423, defer to December 8th. Item 24, SPUD 1464, defer also to December 8th. Item 25, case C7476, defer to December 8th. And item 26, C7480, also defer to December 8th.
Is there anyone here wishing to be heard on any of those items? Items 23, 24, 25, and 26 on the agenda. Seeing none, I think we're ready for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to grant the uncontested continuance request as read.
Commissioner Clare moves to grant the uncontested continuance requests as read. It's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes when available. The motion passes. We are now in line for new continuance requests.
Item 10, case PC 10849 has been withdrawn. Item 17, case SPUD 1440 has been requested to defer to December 8th. And item 21, case DA3PH, defer to December 8th.
Is there anyone here wishing to be heard on any of those items? My understanding is that there are people wishing to be heard on those items. Sarah, on items 20, on item 17 and 21? So my ask of this commission is that we go ahead and hear those items on the agenda and just move forward and grant the withdrawal of item 10, but move forward with hearing 17 and 21 in the agenda. So I guess the motion would be to just grant the withdrawal for item 10.
Mr. Chairman, I move to grant the new continuance request for item B10, PC 10849, and
So does that even require action since they withdrew it? Okay, well, yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
to grant that continuance request, and then items B17 and B21, those will be heard per the agenda individually.
So the motion then is to grant the requested withdrawal of item B10. Is there a second? The second is from Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes when available. And the motion passes. We're in line for the consent docket.
Item number 1 is case PC 10851, application to rezone 2607 South May Avenue from R1 to C3. Item 2 is case C7498, final plat of Mustang Lake, Section 1, located south of Southwest 44th Street and west of South County Line Road. Item 3 is case C7499, final plat of Mustang Lake, Section 2, located south of Southwest 44th Street and west of South County Line Road. Item 4 is case C-7500, final plat of JFK Rose, located south of Northeast 10th Street and west of North Martin Luther King Avenue. Item 5, case C-7501, final plat of Mustang Creek Village Phase 1, located south of Southwest 15th Street and west of South Sarah Road. And item 6, case C-7503, final plat of Barline Industrial Park, located north of Northwest Expressway and west of North Morgan Road.
Thank you. Is there anyone here wishing to be heard on any of these items, items 1 through 6? Please come to the podium. Item 3, sir, you want to be heard on item 3?
Yes, sir, about the Mustang Lakes.
Okay. And so your name and address for the record?
Sir, my name is Paul Bratcher, and I am the volunteered person for Quartz Ridge Drive that comes south off of Southwest 44th.
Okay.
And our
and I'm going to stop you only because we're at this point, we're just trying to decide whether or not we're going to just vote to approve it on the consent docket. Since you're here to speak about it, we're not going to, hopefully, approve of it on the consent docket. So when we get to that item, you'll have an opportunity to tell us all of your thoughts about that item. So we're going to get to it. I apologize that this is confusing in the process, but I just needed to know which item you wanted to be heard on.
That'll be for this meeting here?
This meeting.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Anyone else wishing to be heard on items 1 through 6? Seeing none, I think we just need a motion to approve the consent docket without item 3.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to approve the consent docket as read, excluding item 3 to be heard individually.
The motion before the body is to approve the consent docket except for item 3. It's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes when available. And the motion passes. We're now in line for item 3. Do you want to go ahead and read it?
Item 3 is case C-7499, final plat of Mustang Lake, Section 2, located south of Southwest 44th Street and west of South County Line Road.
Good afternoon, Kendall Dillon with Craft and Toll, representing the applicant. Obviously, second phase of Mustang Lakes addition, this plat conforms to the approved PUD as well as to the preliminary plat. I think there's 3 TEs that we're in agreement with, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. This is in Ward 3. Commissioner Fraley, would you like to lead our discussion?
Yes, in reviewing this item, it did conform to previous applications. There were no contests on the TEs, so I am in support of it. But I haven't heard from any protesters either on it.
Okay. I'm assuming that we're going to hear about it. So, is there anyone here wishing to be heard on item 3? I know that we have Paul Bratcher. Go ahead. I'm so sorry, Mr. Bratcher.
Hello again.
That you have to come back.
As I said earlier, my name is Paul Bratcher. I am a resident and volunteered spokesperson for the Quartz Ridge Drive Street, which comes due south off of Southwest 44th. And our properties butt up against the PUD 1848. And this is not a protest, it's just to make someone observant concern that we have. Right now on Quartz Ridge Drive, every time we get a hard rain, we're scraping 2 to 3 inches of orange mud out of our houses and garage due to improper stormwater drainage. And a lot of that water is coming from the back of the properties. And our concern is that when they start developing the lots on the east side of that zone, including Common Area F, that it's going to be even more of a flood area for the back. Right now, after it rains, those of us who aren't scooping mud and water out of our homes, the people can't use the backyards for like a week to 10 days. And so there's a stormwater runoff, a little culvert that is on the second lot on the east side of that zoning area that goes into a small channel of water that goes into that lake. And so the improper stormwater drainage is not corrected or warned about to develop it in the future, it's going to create more problems for us. So,
Okay.
I mean, there's like 6 to 7 houses there that are affected every time they have more than a light rain. So we just wanted to make sure that the developer is aware of this, because it's a different developer than the corporation that developed Crystal Hills. So we want to make sure that they are aware that there is an existing problem, and they need to maybe mitigate something to not intensify to where more additional water is pumped into the backyards.
Certainly understandable, and I think development may be helpful to this. Do you have any further comments?
Well, we have contacted our developer for Crystal Hills, and they are working with the city planners, came out several times to listen to us, and they acknowledged that the culverts and stormwater drainage are inadequate for that area. And they want to do something about it, but they can't until a certain other step, which I think might be addressed later on by one of the developers here. They can't, I was told that it was a new area. This is so they have to repair the older areas that have been waiting for help before they get to ours. So, like I said, just want to make sure, sorry, first time in public like this.
It's all good.
Fine. You're doing fine.
Anyway, just a concern, not a protest. We don't want to block anything. We just want to make people aware of what they're doing affects homeowners already in existence that are already having flood water issues and stormwater drainage.
Thank you.
Sir? Jared? Give that to him. If you could read the detention comments in our staff report, that'll put your mind at ease. There's a list of comments in there that have to be followed before they can even pull a permit. So you don't need to stand there and do it. I'm just putting your mind at ease. Just look for the detention comments in there, and it'll ease your mind.
Well, I haven't read this yet, sir. I will, and I'll show it to the rest of the street. But it seems to be an issue with somebody, and I mean no offense by this at all, where somebody will draw plans up on paper, review it on paper, and not actually go out to the site, walk around, and look around it. If you walk around on a nice sunny day when it's 95 degrees out, there's not going to be any stormwater issues. You need to get out there after a good rain and physically see. But I thank you for this. Sure. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any questions from anyone else wishing to be heard on item 3? Is there anyone on the commission with questions? Seeing none, I think we're ready for a motion.
I was just going to encourage the applicant to give Mr. Batcher his contact information so that he could keep in touch as this moves forward. I
Sure.
think that would be helpful.
Certainly will.
Thank you.
Commissioner Fraley.
I motion for approval of item C7499.
Commissioner Fraley moves approval of C7499
With TEs included.
with the technical evaluations as listed in our staff report. Been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes when available. And the motion passes. Thank you. We are in line for item 7.
This is case C7502, final plat of Magnolia Harbor, Phase 1, located south of Northwest 23rd Street and west of Overholser Drive.
Good afternoon, Mark Zitzow with Johnson & Associates on behalf of the applicant. This is a continuation or the first phase of the development. It is in conformance with the preliminary plat. There are 4 TEs. TE3, we agree to provide the temporary second entrance via an emergency entrance. We have phase 2 under design right now. It's anticipated to be submitted at the next submittal deadline, which will incorporate that as part of the project. So there's no concern in agreeing to that today. Otherwise, it's in conformance, and we'd ask for your approval.
So just for clarity, you don't need to make any changes to,
We do not need the variance.
You just
We're
don't need
going
the
to agree to the
variance.
temporary connection point.
okay. All right, well, item 7 is in Ward 1. Commissioner Clare, would you like to lead our discussion?
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward, so I'm ready to make a motion if there's no one here to be heard on it.
Is there anyone here wishing to be heard on item 7, C7502? Any questions or comments from commissioners? Commissioner Claire.
All right, I'll move approval of item C7502, subject to the technical evaluation.
Commissioner Claire moves approval of C7502, including the technical evaluations listed in our staff report. It's been seconded by Commissioner Hinkle. Please cast your votes when available. Yeah, I think, and we've got that backwards. The motion was made by Commissioner Claire and seconded by Commissioner Hinkle. Excellent. And the motion passes.
Thank you.
We're now in line for item 8.
This is case C-7491, final plat of Twin Silos Section 3, located west of North Council Road and north of Northwest 150th Street.
Good afternoon. Kendall Dillon with Craft and Toll, representing the applicant, who's also with me today in case you have any questions of him. This is obviously the third final plat of this edition. It conforms to the zoning as well as approved preliminary plat. This item would be on consent, except I think you all received a protest. The subdivision to the west is a subdivision by the name of Vizcaya. And it's a little bit hard to see on your map, but if you notice on our western boundary, yes, right there, that's a tract that in essence is landlocked today. It was originally part of that 80 acres, and so when Vizcaya was developed and the common area was platted, there was 2 parcels that were left over on the east side. They were landlocked with the creation of that plat. They've been landlocked since then. Obviously, our development abuts them. And so I think the protest that you received was from, obviously, the owners of that tract, wanting us to do something to resolve the fact that they're landlocked. So we have, and this is a little bit of an illustration to show you kind of the highlighted is that parcel. So what we have proposed is that within our development, we will provide them with a 25-foot access easement to access that lot. So I think if you look at this application, it certainly conforms to all the subdivision regulations, the zoning, the approved preliminary plat. We are, in good faith, trying to help them out and give them access to that lot by granting them, like I said, 25-foot access easement. So as far as it stands, everything's in conformance. Staff recommends approval, and we'd ask that you all do the same.
Thank you. Commissioner Claire, this is in Ward 1. Would you like to begin our discussion?
Again, pretty straightforward with that, the exception of that one item. I'd just like to commend you on working with them. You were under no obligation to provide that access. So that was an oversight previously. So I applaud you for working with them on that, and I'm ready to make a motion if there's no one else here to speak on the item.
Is there anyone here wishing to be heard on item 8? Oh, absolutely. And you have, please give us your name and address for the record, and you have 5 minutes to address the commission.
Hossein Farzana, legal counsel for Home Creations, 2252 North Broadway and more. First of all, I want to thank you guys, the Planning Commission. Also thank the developer and the engineer. Great firm, great developer. I agree they did everything. It's a great development. We don't want to stop them. Our big deal is we just want to be able to build a house on that lot and not be landlocked. They graciously increased from a 20-foot easement to a 25-foot easement, but it's my understanding from staff that we need a 50-foot wide opening at the building line in order to get a house building permit. So that's what we're asking. If staff is willing to let us develop a 25-foot building easement, we would be just fine with that. There's been no problem. So, we want to be safe, we want to be reasonable. If we build a house there, we want to make sure there's access for a fire department to get there and so on. Really, we just want to be reasonable and safe, and that's all the protests we have. We're, again, great development, great developer, great engineers.
Okay. Any questions for the protester at this point? Okay, then I think if you have no further comments, I'd like to hear from the city about this issue and probably first to address any legal obligation we have to grant the easement or not grant the easement, or is this a private matter between the property owners?
Yes, I believe it's a private matter between the property owners. It would take 50 feet of frontage to build on that lot or some kind of a variance.
So are we under any legal obligation to grant it either way, the 25 or the 50?
And either way, it's a private matter between them.
Is there a
Your-
recommendation
your
from, oh, go ahead.
Decision
JJ.
is up or down on the plat.
So it's my understanding that the subdivision regulations require you to have reasonable access. I don't have I have it in an email. My phone's back. That's the one. So, I mean, that requires reasonable access. And, I read it, I'm a lawyer, and I would argue that it does.
I would say he would have to have 50 feet of frontage to get a permit to build on that house, on that lot. And we're not obliged to grant him any easement. We can't. I think it's a private matter between the two.
I don't know if legal counsel has any thoughts on this
Either
matter.
way, they need a variance, right? I mean,
Would they need a variance? I think that's the question. On item 8 and the issue of granting an easement for the property owner that is now landlocked, should we approve of this plat as is?
And I would argue it's your decision that would make us landlocked. So, I mean, I think you have an obligation.
So the question is, the developer is saying they will include a 25-foot easement. In order to meet the subdivision regulations, the property owner of the landlocked property needs to have 50 feet of easement and is arguing that we should grant that 50 feet. The developer is saying is willing to grant 25 feet. JJ is saying that we have no legal obligation as the city of Oklahoma City to grant the easement either way, and that it's a private matter between the property owner and the developer. So my question is, what should this commission take into account before making a decision either way, or should we not decide either way?
I agree with JJ that I think it's a private matter between the parties and that the city's not obligated to issue, grant an easement.
So the argument from the protester is, if we grant the plat, are we then locking them out? Are we then effectively creating a situation that does not allow them to access their own property? And does that create any obligation on our part?
I wouldn't think so, but I mean, I have not had a chance to even look at this, so I don't know
Well,
what you want to do.
The app,
without, going into all of the legalities of it, the fact of the matter is, if we approve the plat as it is presented to us, this parcel will be landlocked. So you can say that the action we're taking is going to landlock this property. I don't think that's appropriate. We'll leave the legality aside at the moment. I don't think that's appropriate. I don't see that the plat, the final plat itself even reflects the easement, so that would be one issue. I'm not sure we have an obligation, moral or otherwise, to provide for a 50-foot entrance to the property. That's a pretty big easement. I mean, if we were going to be doing that, I think we would be venturing a little farther afield than we want to into condemning property or whatever. I just think it's not appropriate for us to take action that would landlock the property. He may very well have to go seek a variance because the access he'll have won't meet subdivision regulations. It won't be 50 feet. But I,
Unless we granted the 50 feet.
well, that's not really before us.
That's true.
So are we willing to amend the final plat that's been submitted to show the 25 feet?
Yes. I think what we would agree to do is to add a TE that will provide a 25-foot access easement to the subject lot that is landlocked, or the subject parcel that's landlocked. that provides them with access or the ability for them to gain access. I don't think it's incumbent upon us to provide 50 foot, depending on the way that they want to use their property. To us, yeah, we're trying not to. It's a landlocked parcel today with no access period. It was created by the western property owner at the time of the development. That has nothing to do with us. We're trying to be and do the right thing. We're providing access. It's just, I don't think we're in agreement on whether or not it's 25 or 50. But obviously, I think there's a path forward after this if they want to, with council, you know, to push our hand on it and them try to acquire the 50. But as far as this body's concerned and what I think our proposal is, we'd like to move forward with the plat based upon the approval or staff's recommendation, the 2 TEs. We will add a 3rd TE that we will provide a 25-foot access easement to that parcel. I might qualify it unless both parties agree to something else after the fact. If they work a deal to where one party owns a lot or the other one, so I would like to leave a little bit of a contingency in there for that in case that happens. But if nothing's resolved, we'll commit to 25-foot access easement, and we'd like to move on with this plat.
So I guess there's a little bit of a question there about whether we can do that.
I would say we wouldn't be able to do that.
Can we give our approval, but subject to change if it works out differently? I think we'd either have to go
Either
yay
we're
or
granting the
nay.
easement or we're not granting the easement,
Yeah.
you know, and then we're determining the size of the easement, then we're deciding whether or not we're doing that. But any contractual relationship or grant of rights between the property owners is their business, not ours.
We'll simplify it and just say we'll agree to grant 25-foot access easement.
Go ahead with a final counterpoint before we
We'd be able
make a
to
decision.
get a continuance, because I've not had a chance, so we got that this morning, so I haven't had a chance to understand exactly what a 25-foot easement would do, and visit with staff a little bit more about seeing if there is the possibility of path to variance, for us just to get a better understanding of how that would affect our property.
Mr. Dillon, are you willing to take a couple weeks? It's actually a little more than that.
Yeah, we
isn't
won't be
it?
back until December 8th.
December 8th.
4 weeks. I will say it's pretty peculiar.
It is.
It is.
It is peculiar.
We'll agree to continue it, but instead of the December 8th, let's just go ahead and bump it to the first meeting in January.
Okay.
Thank you.
Then I think, Commissioner Claire, we're looking for a motion to continue this item to the January, the first January meeting of Planning
Yeah, I
Commission.
moved to continue item C 7491 to the first meeting in January.
The motion before the commission is to continue item 8 until the first meeting in January. It's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes when available. And that motion passes. I would like to note for our friends, can we please have reached a final conclusion one way or the other?
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a plat, so we can't get involved in the negotiation outside of this horseshoe. So, you know, at least lay it out for us so we can hear both sides. And if we have to make a decision, we're prepared to do that. But let's be clear about one way or the other and work out any compromises between now and then.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
We're in line for item 9.
Item 9 is case PC 10847, application to rezone 2904 Northwest 13th Street from R1 to C1.
Is there an applicant present for item 9?
Good afternoon. Andy Calderon. Address is 2904 Northwest 13th Street.
Thank you, and please tell us about your project.
Wanted to get approval for residential to commercial on behind a building, our business behind the building. The address is right by us, right behind us. We try to make it storage / parking.
Okay.
That's pretty much it.
This is in Ward 6. Commissioner Govine, would you like to lead our discussion?
Sure. I have not had the opportunity to meet with the applicant, but I've reviewed the case. There's no TEs. It appears consistent with, you know, they're asking for a C1 district, which is less intense than C3. It's consistent with May Avenue and adjacent properties.
Yeah.
I don't have any concerns with the case. Is there any other members of the public or commissioners that have anything that they would like to comment or question on?
Let's see, is there anyone in the audience wishing to be heard on item 9, PC 10847? Are there any questions from commissioners about this item? I'm in agreement with Commissioner Govine that this actually turns down the intensity of the use along May Avenue, which is probably a good thing, so.
I am curious about what the screening requirements are. This is adjacent to residential property to the west.
Just the standard landscape screening, a 6 to 8 foot fence and a 5 foot green belt.
Thank you.
Seeing none, I think we're ready, Commissioner Govine.
Well, then in that case, I would move for approval of PC 10847.
The motion is to recommend approval to City Council to PC 10847. And I think we have a second by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes when available. Commissioner Hinkle? Votes yes. The motion passes. Good luck with your project.
Thank you so much.
We're in line for item 11.
Item 11 is PC 10850, application to rezone 327 Northwest 121st Street from R1 to R2.
Hello, my name is Sammy Khader, and I'm looking to rezone from R1 to R2 on this plot of land.
Excellent. Thank you. Let's see. This is in, is this my ward too? Looking at it? Yes, it is. I'm in support. It's consistent with the comprehensive plan for us to have a variety of housing types, but I am happy to take hear any questions from commissioners about it. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to be heard on this item? Seeing none, I think we're ready. I'd make a motion to approve if I could.
Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend approval to City Council for item PC 10850.
The motion is to recommend approval of PC 10850 to City Council. It's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes when available. And the motion passes. Good luck with your project.
Thank you.
We're in line for item 12.
Item 12 is SPUD 1451, application to rezone 2600 Northwest Expressway from R1 and R4 to SPUD 1451.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. This is an application for an SPUD that would allow for a new bank headquarter building to be built right there along Northwest Highway, just west of Lynn. Jesus. A little touchy. As you'll note from the staff report, this was continued for about a month. We were contacted right before the October, I think, 13th hearing and notified that there were some protests, so we continued it at first 2 weeks, and then we weren't able to get a neighborhood meeting, so eventually 2 more weeks so that we could have a neighborhood meeting, which was held last Sunday. Commissioner Powers had the opportunity to be there. A couple of things happened from the time in which we filed it until where we are today. The site plan has changed fairly significantly. We became aware that the concern was, 1, the number of parking spaces, and 2, the orientation and proximity of the building. And so we set out to find a way to make sure that we believe the use to be appropriate in this location. But given the concerns by the neighborhood, we tried to find a way to modify the site plan to push it as far away from the existing neighborhood as possible and still allow my client to build their bank building. So a couple of things of note, if you look at the setbacks that are provided for in the SPUD, I think they're going to be some of the largest setbacks you've seen. So on page 3 of your staff report, the setback that we require from the south is 90 feet. That is far and away what the code would require of a commercial or office building from residential. And then finally on the west, we have a 100-foot setback. So we have, I think, at the outset, a site plan and a proposal that is exceptionally compatible with what Northwest Highway is. It's worth noting that Northwest Highway at this location is designated in the urban medium designation. The front half of the site's actually zoned R4 multifamily. And so you can imagine the intensity of what could be built there today with no zoning requests whatsoever is far more intense than a single bank building located on that site with the setbacks that we propose. What I handed out are what we would propose as TEs. You'll notice in your staff report that there are no technical evaluations contained within it. But through the course of the meeting Sunday, there were a handful of things that were requested by the neighbors that we were able to agree to. And so you will see that there are 11 TEs that we'd like to add. In addition, in speaking with Commissioner Powers, there are 2 additional ones I'd like to add, that being TE 12, limit it to 1 building plus the accessory drive-through structure. And the maximum height along Northwest Expressway would be 8 feet tall. So we now have, I think, a development that is compatible with the surrounding area. There is a fairly significant grade differential. So not only will we have a 15-foot green belt on the south and the west. If you go back, Jared, do you mind go back to the... So in addition just to the overall setback, if you look along 52nd Street and then on what's labeled as Finley Avenue to the west, it's a 15-foot green belt before you get to our site-proof screening. So it's a 15-foot green belt along the south and a 15-foot green belt along the west. Further, the homes that front 52nd Street are on the south side of the street, presumably with a 20-foot setback. So with a 20-foot setback from the street, and then the street is probably 26 feet in width, and then our property line, it's another 90 feet, we're talking about 150 feet or so of distance between our building and those homes. In addition, we sit much lower. So the impact is even lessened based upon how our site lays out. Just some of the highlights, if you look through these, one of the concerns was neighborhood traffic. So the access onto Lynn is required to be built in a manner that forces traffic to the north. So it's a left out only, so that everything will exit the site and go towards Northwest Highway and not back south towards the neighborhood. One of the questions also raised was the orientation of cars to the drive-through lane because of headlights. So we've oriented the drive-through lane so that it's required to be either north or east in that spot. So to the east is another non-residential tract. To the north is, of course, Northwest Highway. So all of these things taken together, I think, is now in a position to provide you with something compatible. And again, if you consider what exists, frankly, along Northwest Highway, in fact, just across you have those twin oil towers that exist. So a 3-story building on Northwest Highway in an urban medium designation is a very low intense use. And a bank building, an office building, is typically an 8 to 5 type of user. So they tend to be pretty good neighbors when you consider what could be built there. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and we'd ask for your approval.
Before we get to Commissioner Powers, can you read TEs 12 and 13 one more time for us?
Yeah, so on TE 12, what I'd ask is that we would modify.
Mr. Box, I thought with respect to the 1 building, we would just modify the language of TE4 where it refers to there'll be a maximum of 2 buildings. We'll
That's
just say
fine. We can do it that way.
Maximum of 1 building.
Yep.
Okay. So we're eliminating 12 and modifying 4. Can
Yeah,
you
so
read
it's 1
13?
building plus the accessory drive-through structure. And then, so what would be 12 would be maximum sign height 8 feet monument.
Okay. Commissioner Powers, this is in your ward. Would you like to lead our discussion?
I would commend both the applicant and the neighbors for very rigorous input. We met twice, once with the neighbors and then once with the applicant. There was a lot of discussion. People were very involved. They had, definite ideas about what they wanted to see. I think that this product is better than it started off to be for that input. I am pleased to have it limited in height. I'm pleased to have it limited in usage to the extent that it is. I think it is a minimal impact on the neighbors, especially with respect to having the drives tilted toward the north and so on. Northwest Expressway is, of course, a very, very busy corridor. I asked specifically if the applicant would agree to decel lanes, and they have. I think that's also something that's very, very important. The site is a little bit problematic in the sense that what shows on this site plan is Finley Avenue. It's not really a street. I don't know whether it ever was anything like a street. It may have been platted to be one. There is some asphalt that looks like it had been laid down, like I did that myself or something. I mean, it's hardly even a driveway. And so the decision was made not to pull the sidewalk down along that area of issues with homeless people and so forth. It was thought that that would provide just a corridor for mischief. So the sidewalks will go along 52nd Street. And I think that this is really as good an application as it can be for what is obviously a very prime location on Northwest Expressway. I know we have people here who want to be heard, so I'll let them speak before I say anything else.
Well, do we have any questions for the applicant from any of our commissioners before we hear from the audience? Well, we've got someone here. So, sir, would you like to give us your name and address for the record? You have 5 minutes to address the commission.
Okay, thanks. I know Commissioner Powers, and I want to thank her for attending our meetings and her help on this. Also like to thank the great Rob Littlefield, who without his help, I wouldn't be able to make this presentation today.
Your name and address for the record, sir?
I'm sorry?
Your name and address for the record, please?
Yes. My name is Russell Wayne Perry, and I'm at 5220 North Miller Place, and my home is facing the back end of this development. Y'all may know my bosses, Curtis Hale, a surveyor extraordinaire, and before that, Carlos Davila of Davila Engineering, with whom I worked with and built subdivisions all across this city for 20 years. I've been a land surveyor for 43 years now. Y'all forgive me, I may not be privy to what has been added back into this spud, and that's why I'm here today, to make sure that we get in black and white the requirements that I think have been taken out of the spud. And if I may, today I'm here to represent my neighbors and my longtime neighborhood. I've lived in my home since 1959. Moved in when I was 3 years old. It's my grandparents' home, and I try to take very good care of it. 1987, I formed the Belle Isle View Neighborhood Preservation Association to preserve the quaintness of our neighborhood. Very low traffic area. I don't think that this development will impact our area as far as traffic negatively, as they have acquiesced to providing a northbound only exit from their drive-through. And anyway, last Sunday, we had a well-attended neighborhood meeting to discuss this development. Everyone was there from LWPB, I believe it is, architects and engineers. The bank was represented, even Lippert Construction Company was there. We went through a lot of changes, and their picture as shown reflects what Mr. Box has just codified by saying setbacks and all that. But that, to the best of my knowledge, had been taken out of this spud. It simply said, eliminate all building requirements. And I'm here to ask that those be put back in, and we get this in black and white. Following me will be Mr. Jeff James, who will speak, and I'd like to also acknowledge our neighbor Michael Vance for being here also in support of our protest. And now I've only had one day to react to deletions that we find in this spud and all the important changes that we negotiated seem to be missing from that, deleted from the spud. We now understand that their plot plan showing the pictures, number of stories, building location, building setback, and especially the brick or rock and brick wall we thought they had agreed to have been taken out of the spud. So, and all, the picture is not enforceable, I'm told. So, and also they're going against recommendations made by staff. Therefore, we ask that until this is codified in black and white, we get these requirements back into the spud, that you all do not approve this and would like to continue this until December 8th. And thank you all for listening to me and putting up my amateurness on this.
That's okay. Mr. Perry, and thank you for coming to visit with the commission. Do you have a copy of this amendment, this series of things that the developer has asked to change? And so, if you have not,
I may not have the most current copy. All I have is a digital copy of the SPUD, as I understand it. It is presented here today.
okay, well, would you take, if you don't mind, we have other people who are signed up to speak. While we're taking that moment, would you get with Mr. Box and review what's on this sheet? Because the things that you named were all things that are on this sheet that are changes that we're going to put into the record today. So if
Okay.
you just take a moment and visit with him and read what's here, and we'll listen to the other people who are signed up to speak.
Okay, yes, listen to them, and I'll get with Mr. Box on it. Thank you all very much.
Okay, thank you. Right, we have Michael Vance signed up to speak. Mr. Vance?
Michael Vance, 2625 Northwest 51st Street. Really
Thank you.
just
You have
came
5
here
minutes.
to, I'm sorry?
You have 5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay. Thank you, sir. No, I just wanted to come here and show my support for Russell James, the entire neighborhood. He's, kind of corralled this whole thing together, rallied the troops, so to speak, and, it's been different being in this neighborhood, not very long, but I just wanted to show my support for these gentlemen, and, hopefully this thing is all laid out the way that the lawyers, Mr. Box, and everybody else originally had kind of explained it to us, and that's all I really had to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vance. Is there anyone else here wishing to be heard on this item? Item 12, SPUD 1451. Go ahead, Mr. Box.
Okay, so I think the confusion, I was going to touch this, but realized what was going to happen for the noise, so I won't. The staff report, of course, doesn't reflect the changes made Sunday, because the staff report was issued Friday. Colin Walke, who is a lawyer and the current state representative, lives in the neighborhood. I included Colin, Ms. Powers, on all revisions to the SPUD, and then Mr. Perry actually got involved this week as well and has been on the email chain with all the revisions to the SPUD, except for, I think, 3 or 4 additional ones that Ms. Powers had requested. So everything we committed to, everything I said at this podium, and everything on that sheet of paper that I gave you, of course, will be codified, and any motion will be subject to all of those things that I have committed to.
And I have those in writing to provide to staff, so, including the sign, so.
Okay. And I believe Mr. Perry now has a copy of that list of items and is reviewing it. So any questions or comments from commissioners? Seeing none, Commissioner Powers.
I'm going to move approval of item 12, SPUD 1451, subject to the list of TEs, and I'll be happy to read them if I need to, but
Why don't
I
you
have
read the
them
modification of
I have them in
TE4?
writing. And, the only thing that may have changed since Mr. Perry received his copy is the limitation to 1 building rather than 2. The construction of the decel lane is agreed to, subject to Public Works approval, of course, and the signage will be limited to 8-foot monument sign. Otherwise, it's all right here, so.
Okay, just for the clarity, to make sure we have it right in the record, would you mind rereading the change to TE4?
So it currently reads, revised maximum number of buildings to be stated as follows. There'll be a maximum of 2 buildings within the SPUD, excluding accessory structures. Instead, it's just going to say, there shall be a maximum of 1 building within the SPUD, excluding the accessory structures, so.
And then we're adding the decel lane is that TE?
It's already in there.
It's already
in there,
there,
okay.
and 7, we're just changing the wording a tiny bit.
The sign is the only one that's added that's not
listed here,
Correct,
which would
yes,
be
sir.
limiting the sign height to 8 feet.
8 feet monument.
Okay.
Yes.
As long as our lawyers and our staff believe that we have adequately accounted for these changes in the record.
And my reading of the current version of the MDS includes all of these changes, except the ones that we've made here today. So.
Okay. Excellent. All right, then the motion is to recommend approval of SPUD 1451 to City Council with the technical evaluation amendments as read into the record and submitted to the record. Is there a second?
Oh, I'm sorry. This is my bad. I did this.
It's been seconded by Commissioner Hinkle. Please cast your votes when available.
Yay.
Thank you.
And the motion passes. We're in line for item 13.
Item 13 is SPUD 1461, application to rezone 12852 Northwest 10th Street from AA.
Is there an applicant present?
Good afternoon. My name is Brian Berger. I'm with Berger Engineering, 17103 Preston Road, Dallas, Texas. Here today to request the approval of an SPUD for a new caliber collision at the southeast quadrant of Cemetery Road and Northwest 10th Street. We used the SPUD template that we did for the last two calibers there on North Penn as kind of a go-by for this project. So just really here to answer any questions or address any concerns that you might have.
Thank you. This is in Ward 3. Commissioner Fraley, would you like to lead our discussion on this item?
I think the auto repair shop is in line with the other buildings in this area. I think it's a good location. There were no TEs listed on the staff report, so I would recommend approval.
Okay. Any questions from commissioners for the applicant? Is there anyone here wishing to be heard on item 13, SPUD 1461? Seeing none, Commissioner Fraley.
I move to recommend approval of SPUD 1461.
Commissioner Fraley moves to recommend approval of SPUD 1461 to City Council. It's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes when available. And the motion passes. We're in line for item 14.
This is SPUD 1462, application to rezone 3208 North Indiana Avenue from R1.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. This is an SPUD application similar to many that you've seen here recently in the core, whereby we're taking a lot that is, oh, let's go back one. There we go. Kind of a mid-block lot, and what we seek to do is to, through the SPUD, allow for a duplex to be there. The comprehensive plan designates this site as urban medium. There are no technical evaluations. Staff recommends approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. This is in Ward 2. Commissioner Powers, would you like to lead our discussion?
Is there anybody who signed up to speak?
Not at this time, I don't believe.
I am actually kind of encouraged by this application. This area could use a little shot of new investment. I'm hoping it will inspire some of the neighbors to up their game a little. It's directly across the street from an apartment complex of sorts. It's, you know, right there in the OCU area. I think this is a really good type of increase density project.
Excellent.
So I'm all in favor of it, unless there's somebody here who wants to change my mind. If not, or if we don't have any questions from the commissioners, I'll move approval of item 14, SPUD 1462.
Well, let's double check. Is there anyone here wishing to be heard on SPUD 1461, item 14? Then I think the motion, 1462, excuse me, 1462. The motion is to recommend approval of SPUD 1462 to City Council. It's been seconded by Commissioner Hinkle. Please cast your votes when available. Yay. Thank you. The motion passes. We're in line for item 15.
This is SPUD 1463, application to rezone 9501 Southwestern Avenue from R1.
Once again, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. Here on behalf of the applicant, I've got a host of people here with me. If there are questions, this is an exciting application. It's a joint effort between Moore Public Schools, the Bridges Project, and the Sparrows Project. So it is an effort that would allow for housing for students that would otherwise be experiencing homelessness. There are individuals within the Moore Public Schools that are facing this, and right now there's really no good place for them. And so between these wonderful not-for-profits and the Moore Public Schools, this site will allow for that activity to happen. And so it's a wonderful project that we're excited about and hope you will be too. We do agree to both TEs, and again, I've got folks to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. This is in Ward 5. Commissioner Hinkle, would you like to begin our discussion?
I was, fortunate enough to be asked to be on the crew that identified spaces for this. I could not be more behind this than this is a great, great ad for South Oklahoma City, resembling the Pivot project, I think, at 50th and Lincoln-ish. Perfect place for it. I don't know if we have anybody who needs to be heard on this, but I'm in full support.
Thank you. Any questions from commissioners? Is there anyone here wishing to be heard on this item, SPUD 1463? Go ahead, Commissioner Powers.
I do just want to say, this is a wonderful project. I am really, really pumped to see this kind of thing going on, you know, this kind of opportunity being provided to people who really need it, so.
Couldn't agree more. Anyone else wishing to be heard on this item? Seeing none, Commissioner Hinkle.
I'll move approval for SPUD 1463 with the TEs if there are any.
Excellent. Commissioner Hinkle moves to recommend approval of SPUD 1463 to City Council with the technical evaluations as listed in our staff report. It's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes when available. And the motion passes. Good luck. This is a great project. Very excited about this happening in Ward 5. Item 16.
This is SPUD 1468, application to rezone 2133 Southwest 11th Street from R4 to SPUD 1468.
Good afternoon, Mark Grubbs, 1800 South Sarah Road, on behalf of the applicant. This is a spud at the corner of Southwest 10th and Young's, and it's just the redevelopment, the demolishment, and rebuilding of a women's development center. It's currently operating as such. With the demolish and rebuild, it's currently zoned R4, so it's not properly zoned. We're back to zone it properly and rebuild the project. Went to RDC on November 3rd, was recommended for approval to the Planning Commission. Staff recommends approval. We'd be happy to answer any questions. Ask for your approval.
Commissioner Govine, this is in your ward. Would you like to begin our discussion?
Sure, thank you. Well, I see in those there's no TEs. It looks to be a very community, beneficial development for the community. I note that the Riverfront Design Committee recommended approval on November 3rd. I don't have any specific questions, but I'll open it up to other commissioners and then the public if there's anyone that wishes to discuss further.
I did have one question. Sure. It was just about, and this is for staff really, building height limitations in O2. What are they? Especially with that proximity to residential. I mean, it's next to R4, so I don't know if there's much. Is there any limit? Who wants to be the lucky one? I know somebody on our staff knows.
What'd you say? I'm sorry. I'd have to look it up.
Oh, okay, we're gonna take a pause and do some research for a moment. Is there anyone here wishing to be heard on SPUD 1468?
Like thunder referees.
Any other questions that don't require us to have to go do some research on SPUD 1468? Anybody? Anybody really like this project? I do. I think it's great. I'm glad we have these kinds of services in our fantastic city.
I do too.
So often it's difficult to cite these kinds of things, so it's wonderful that it's already an existing facility and.
And that we're repurposing it, helping to improve our great city.
We need some hold music.
We do.
Hi, Sarah Welch, Planning. We know that in the O2 district, next to R4, it's 2 stories and 35 feet. What we're scrambling for is we're not sure how the SRODD affects that.
Oh,
Sorry about that.
Okay, well, as long as
Yeah.
we're at the maximum of 35 feet, I would imagine that the SRODD's standards are going to be higher than what the base zoning is. So, okay, I'm good. All right, Commissioner Govine.
In that case, I would move to recommend approval to council of SPUD 1468.
Commissioner Govine moves to recommend approval of SPUD 1468 to City Council. It's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes when available.
Yay.
Seeing none, looks like motion passes. We're good. Congratulations. We are now in line for item 17.
This is SPUD 1440, application to rezone 1228 Southwest 149th Street from AA.
Is there an applicant present for item 17? And I guess the applicant is not present. I know that the applicant did ask for a continuance that was not granted.
Put his hand up.
It doesn't look like it. He's not the last
Well,
applicant.
are you the applicant?
Looking for the applicant.
It was more of a sporty type.
Shall we push it to the end of the
Yeah,
docket?
let's push it to the end of the docket, and maybe there is an opportunity. Yeah, we do have people here who are wishing to be.
It's only a couple more cases.
Okay. Go ahead, JJ.
The applicants informed us that they cannot be here today.
Oh,
What options do we have to take action today without the applicant being present? Would that prevent us from taking any actions today on this
no,
item?
not at all.
We can deny it too.
No? Okay. Then I would say that we move forward if there is agreement with the commission on this, especially knowing that we have people in the audience wishing to be heard on this item. The applicant took the risk of requesting a continuance. That request was denied by this commission. So if their choice is not to be here, that's on them. Commissioner Hinkle, this is in your ward.
Yes, it is. I've had many conversations on this, some of them not quite so pleasant. In the beginning, I thought this was an odd place for a use like this, but as I've explained multiple times to the protesters, property owners' rights are just as important as everything else. Sometimes you guys don't like to listen. In the beginning, the very first time we met, I was concerned about the C1 uses, especially the alcohol service, which doesn't go for me. Curtis Liggins and I and Scott Shelton, I don't know if you're here. If you're here, raise your hand. Thank you. You were the voice of reason, and I appreciate your input. We sat down for an hour or two a week ago. We crafted new language that I would feel comfortable with this going in that spot, but we redlined the application. We sent it to the applicant. They responded that they weren't on board with everything that we'd suggested. They wanted it to stay open till midnight on Friday and Saturday, and they wanted the ability to serve alcohol, which is a no-go for me. So right up front, I don't need to hear from you. I know exactly what you're thinking. I'm denying this, or I'm going to make a move to deny this. I want to point out some things. I told you guys 6 or 7 times, this is coming. Commercial is coming to that spot. If you don't like it, buy it. Somebody go buy it, because you're not going to be able to control it forever. What we had written was a pretty minor use. Turning a bunch of drunk pickleball players loose at midnight on Friday and Saturday night is not going to happen in my neighborhood, not as long as I have control. And I really shouldn't do this, but I can't help myself. I read every single thing on this, and I'm not going to call this young lady out, but I know who you are, and so do your neighbors. But question, who is invested in this project? Who are the partners involved? Financial and non-financial partners and any affiliates. We request a list submitted with time to review prior to any vote. We don't know who the partners are. We don't have that ability. That is not something that we get to know or you get to know. Does anyone on this board, behind the scenes, working for the city or on the planning committee, seek to benefit in any way on this project or part of this project, financially or non-financially, and have anything personal for their own gain? Seriously. We all are up here as volunteers, wasting our time fighting stupid stuff like this. We're doing this out of the goodness of our hearts and for the betterment of the city, and I don't appreciate accusations like this, period. I care a lot about Ward 5. I'm running for city council for Ward 5 so I can represent people and keep stuff like this from happening. So with that being said, further conversations I'm fine with, but I'm going to move for denial on this project, and these guys can go fight it out with the city council or take it to district court.
My guess is that, you know, and obviously we're going to have to hear from other commissioners and see what the temperature is, but you know, at this point, I want to second what Commissioner Hinkle has said. I think we continued this item because we were all concerned about the disruption to the neighborhood, about whether this was going to be disruptive. I think there's consensus that that development will be coming to this area, especially knowing that the street resurfacing is going to be happening and widening is going to be happening on 149th. But you know, we had serious concerns, and it worries me even further that the developer has been resistant to listening to some very reasonable changes that were requested about this item. So I, for one, will be joining with Commissioner Hinkle on voting to recommend denial of this application, and certainly open to hearing from commissioners. I do know that we have people in the audience wishing to be heard. I would ask, though, if the sense of this commission is that we are going to vote for denial, there may be no need for us to hear further from the public. So, commissioners first before. Go ahead, Commissioner Govine.
I believe we've heard most of these concerns twice already, so I'm aligned with where we're headed.
So that being said, we do have one person signed up to speak on this item. It does appear as though there are sufficient votes for the commission is going to recommend denial. So, Mr. I'm very sorry that I cannot read that name. Hilterbrow? Are you wishing to be heard? Or you?
I agree with what you're saying about denial.
Sir, you'd have to come to the mic to address the commission, please.
I'm glad you're denying, and I'm sorry about the misunderstanding. People get upset about sending you a letter, but I'm David Hiltbrand. I live on Indiana. I just worked for the water department for 30 years. I know the whole area. I know everybody's house. I've been to everything for 30 years. I drove around, gave citations for watering on the wrong day, all that stuff. I know everything about the whole community. But if you don't realize that community, I have a yard like a football field. I'm the smallest area in that area, in the houses. The development from, excuse me, Western to Portland, almost after 44. There's no commercial properties that's at the gas station, a marijuana store, and a bar at I-44. And that's it. So I try to go along with what y'all's doing, like consistency. There's no consistency why that property should be commercial right there for what he wants. The value of the property across the street would go down. There's another one. There's no need for it in that area. We have giant gym, everybody knows on Western being built. We're all out there for privacy and live out in the country, but we're not in the country. I got people signed up, want to buy property out there. He, during the meetings, said one thing, that why they wanted that property in that business there. Cheap. That was it, cheap. Did we need it? Didn't say that. Did we want it? Does it benefit the community? Is another one. There's no need for that area. That's three different possibilities why zoning should never be right there. Blackwater, Blackwater's right there. It's not a city street. Everybody thinks Blackwater's on the north side. It's pretty big, right? on that side, it's a private road, and it goes down a single road. Every road in that area, I can name them all. It's private and dead ends. So when we got people drunk driving around at night, they're going down private roads, going into our neighborhoods, and we have 25, 10, 15 half-acre lot, and the whole area consistent. Consistency is another thing on zoning. Look at the acreages and look what's out there. That property has nothing to do with consistency. And you talked about the builder that built, we should buy it. Now, homeowner association, you should be our homeowner association, making sure we're not, they should be consistent with the community and our needs. It's not needed. And the builder that builds across streets, say someday when he gets 4 lanes someday, they've been promised a 4-lane street on 149th Street for 10 years. I mean, you ought to know how that can happen. We've been promising that for a long time. Pennsylvania is a major area to change. It costs too much. When the city sees that money, they stop it. And it just, if any questions, and also the tornado area. We're trying to rebuild. You see a lot of new homes in that area when you drive by. You think, this is a new area. It's not. We're being rebuilt. We struggled for years, and then this guy comes buying like a vulture and wants cheap land. Neighborhoods are being bought by cheap land and people overbuilding and selling homes. So people used to have 1,500 square foot home. Now they have 4,000 square foot home because they're trying to make money off the cheap land. You should protect, the city should protect people that's been in the tornado area. And we haven't seen the city help us very much by denying it and keeping this from ever happening. Would it be the way you could help protect the community trying to rebuild after a tornado? I know it's been a long time, but I've worked 6 months, 18 hours a day trying to build my property. You know, we're still struggling financially, everything. And then when this comes up, our property lines, people across the street from them, I know them, we're all relatives. The Knight family, Bobby Knight, Knights, my cousin, everybody in that whole area is like a family. But we want our privacy and separate. We live out that, it's the outskirts. I know when I was a teenager, the pre-lease officer told me on 59th Street, go to 89th Street and race. Now you know that area. I mean, now we're on the outskirts. A lot of people think we're in Norman. I think most of y'all that live on the north side, you don't realize the outskirts of the Oklahoma City on 149th Street and our community out there. And I'd just like to clear up anything that we have out there.
Well, I think you're about to get our support here in exactly what you're asking us to do. But thank you so much for coming to address the commission.
I'm sorry if I went over. I've been practicing with lawyers out of Norman and city councilmen in Norman, and it doesn't help. And
you like us better up here in Oklahoma City?
If you want any questions like that, let me know. And if you come in that community, check our community out and visit, but don't stay long.
Oh, okay. Is there anyone else wishing to be heard on item 17, knowing that we are about to hear a motion that is highly likely to pass to recommend denial of this application? Seeing none, Commissioner Hinkle.
I will move denial of SPUD 1440.
Commissioner Hinkle moves to recommend denial of SPUD 1440 to City Council. It's been seconded by Commissioner Privet. Please cast your votes when available. And the motion passes. We're now in line for item 18.
Item 18 is case PC 10852, application to rezone 1000 Northwest 164th Street from PUD 1289 to C3.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commission. Good afternoon, Chairman. Kurt Daniels with Cochran Engineering, the engineer of record. Representing Club Car Wash. I have to compliment this commission. I do this all over the country, and you're the most efficient commission I've ever seen, so thank you. It's incredibly well done.
Compliments before we vote. Convenient, right?
Well, you guys do well. You guys do very well. So what we're bringing before you tonight is a request for rezoning from PUD 1289 to C3 zoning. And I think we have staff's recommendation on this, and I think one thing staff wrote is important in here. It says there's no new potential compatibility issues that are identified when placing the C3 zoning on this. It's for a car wash, and staff has recommended it, and what we would ask is your favorable recommendation also.
Thank you. This is in my ward. I don't have any direct comments or concerns, but very happy to hear from the audience if there's anyone, or from commissioners if there's anyone wishing to be heard on this item. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to be heard on PC 10852? Any questions from commissioners about this issue? Then if I could move to recommend approval, I would.
Mr. Chairman, since you're unable to, I'll move approval of the City Council, recommendation of approval of the City Council for item PC 10852.
The motion is to recommend approval of PC 10852 to City Council. It's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes when available.
Yay.
And the motion passes. Good luck. Thank you. We're now in line for item 19.
This is case number SPUD 1467, application rezone 900 Northwest 45th Street from R1.
My name's Charles Allen with Allen Engineering. The owner, Stacy Crouch, is also here in the audience. This spud is to divide a 50 by 140 foot lot at the corner of Northwest 45th Street and Francis Avenue into two flag lots to allow the construction of a second dwelling. Initially, probably be for her father, and then, initially it'll be for her to live in while she's remodeling the existing house, then moving her father in, and then, eventually probably be sold. But we agree with the TEs, but would like to talk about TE number 2. I think you may have gotten a revised site plan that shows the drive off of Francis Avenue. We'd like in the future to be able to revise that drive, probably move it south to align with the single car garage on the proposed. And if you don't, do you have that, Jerome? We just don't want to restrict it in the future to be able to move that drive, the existing drive that we show there, south, and then have a width of about 22 feet, which would allow for basically two 8-foot drives, 3 foot between them, 1.5 feet on either side. I think that actually totals to 21. We drew it up to 22 that you're looking at in front of you right now.
So could you just lay that, what is the width of the current driveway? And then what is the amount that you're asking to be able to increase it to?
I believe it's 16 feet.
It's currently 16.
I believe.
You want to be able to go up to 22?
Correct.
Okay.
And Lacey's here. She doesn't, she's not going to fight with it, but we would like that. And instead of not being able to ever move it, is to be able to move it south. And I think the way TE2 is written, it kind of restricts us from moving it even.
Commissioner Powers, if you don't mind, I know that this is in your ward. Maybe we could hear from JJ about this, or Jeff.
Initially, when we looked at this, it looked as though there was a 2-car driveway and they were going to add even more paving than that. But if it's only 21 feet, we're fine with that. As long as the driveway is under 30 feet, we're fine.
So what's the wording you would recommend in the TE? What it currently says is the existing driveway approach on Francis will be utilized and shall not be widened.
I think if Charlie just puts a maximum width on the driveway of 21 feet,
that's fine.
Okay. That sounds good to me. Commissioner Powers, would you like to begin our discussion on this item?
I have to start this by saying I really had my feelings hurt when I saw this application, because I had met with a young woman who owns property there along Francis some time ago, and we had this long talk and really, I thought worked everything out. And then I thought, Charles Allen, how come she didn't just pick up the phone? It was a different house. So I went by and looked at it. Yeah, I had some concern about the driveway width also, but I think I'm okay with staff's compromise on that. So we're talking about changing TE to read that the existing driveway approach on Francis will be utilized and may be widened to a maximum of, what is it, JJ?
21 feet.
21.
1 feet.
And moved also, moved south. If
We could just take out the part about the existing be utilized and just say the driveway shall be limited to 21 feet, I
Okay,
think is what we.
that's fine with me.
He asked for, well, JJ recommended 21. Was it 21? I wrote down 21.
Well, we've got 22 on the drawing. 21's fine.
20, okay. Okay, anything else, Commissioner Powers?
Actually, what I heard JJ say was as long as it's less than 30, they're okay. So I think, you know, 22 is fine.
Okay.
22.
I'm pretty sure I asked, right? Okay.
Okay,
So we're at 22?
Yes, we're at 22. Is there anybody here that wants to be heard on this? If not, I will move approval of item number 19, SPUD 1467, subject to the TEs with TE2 revised to read the driveway width shall be limited to 22 feet.
Excellent. The motion is to recommend approval of SPUD 1467 to City Council with the amendment to TE2, limiting the driveway to a maximum of 22 feet. 22 feet. It's been seconded by Commissioner Clare. Please cast your votes when available.
Can I ask one question of the applicant?
Sure.
Which is not related to your case? Would you please consider adding some windows to this unit?
Yes.
That was kind of a last-minute rendering there. It'll try to blend more with the neighborhood, actually.
You don't want your daughter to be living in that darkness, right?
Okay. Commissioner Govine really cares about sunlight, natural light for our residents in Oklahoma City.
I'll actually go further than that. I would like a door that faces the street, so.
Pardon me?
A door that faces the street.
Okay.
So.
Well, I think we can do that. Thank you.
Thank you. The motion passes. Good luck with your project. We're on item 20.
Item 20 is case SPUD 1469, application to rezone 1544 Northeast 29th Street from R1 with HNO Healthy Neighborhoods overlay to SPUD 1469 with HNO overlay.
Good afternoon, John Pettis, 228 Robert S. Carrick. Here on behalf of the applicant, as you see, the applicant wishes to split this particular lot. This particular two houses were built in 1940, before I was even thought about it. But again, the applicant wishes to split these two houses.
Okay. This is in my ward. I'm in full support. Are there any questions from commissioners for the applicant? Anyone in the audience wishing to be heard on SPUD 1469? If I could move to recommend approval, I sure would.
Sorry, I do have a couple of questions. Please. Just regarding utilities, I'm presuming sewer is served off of the alley, or there's no alley present, but it looks to me like maybe there's an easement there. Water, just how are utilities planned to be dealt with?
The utilities, actually right now, the utilities is serviced, I don't remember on the top of my head, but I would definitely find that issue out.
Dustin, you want to take a step?
5-foot easement, perhaps? I do believe it is a 5-foot easement.
Okay.
What we would do is, since the lots are going to be split, there would be a separate water meter for each house because the lots could be sold off individually. So there would be a separate water meter for each house and a separate sewer connection for each house. And then if they're dependent upon where the sewer line is located, if a service line crosses over to another lot, then we would require a private easement for that lot, for that private service line across another person's lot to be able to get there.
Does that help, Commissioner Clare?
Yeah. I know a lot of times we see that lot or that easement indicated, so then that's very helpful.
It is.
So we just didn't have it in this instance, so just want to make sure that it's being accounted for.
Thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners? Then I think we're ready for a motion.
All right, Mr. Chairman, since this is your ward, and you're unable to make a motion, I'll move to recommend approval of City Council for item SPUD 1469, subject to the technical evaluations.
Commissioner Clare moves to recommend approval of SPUD 1469 to City Council. It's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes when available. And the motion passes.
All right, thank you. And last time I came up here, Commissioner, you made a comment about David's shoes. He has on the right shoes today, so I believe his dad got your message loud and clear.
We have asked him every time since then to provide us visual of such shoes, so okay.
Can the people at home see that? I don't know who's working the cameras, but I hope somebody can actually show these shoes since we keep talking about it every week.
Hey,
Is your wife watching too, David?
Duluth has moccasins on sale for Christmas. You guys can go stock up.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are now in line for item 21.
There we go. Okay, thank you. Item 21 is case DA-3-PH, application for consideration of a lot split deed approval on property located at 10317 Hassett Street, and variances to sections 3.4.4.C.2F and 5.10.4.B of the subdivision regulations.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dakota Desai. I'm with SRB. I'm representing the applicant, Christina and Ricky Hayes. This is a consideration of a lot split deed approval. We did request a continuance for this item, and I would ask for a continuance again if that's at all possible, mostly because we would like to speak with the neighbors in the area. We did receive word from the planning staff that there were several protests. We have read through those. The applicant did attempt to contact some of the neighbors, and we just haven't had adequate time to hold a meeting or to be in contact with them. So that would be the preference. But essentially, this is an application to split one tract of land that's just over 5 acres into 4 lots. That's consistent with the area. It's an R1 zoning area. It allows for less than 1 dwelling unit per acre in density. The applicant wants to split into 4 lots to create 4 family homes.
Thank you. We were wanting to hear the item because people came a long way down to be heard about this issue. And certainly, if they would like to speak, we'd love to hear from them. I can say, because this is in my ward and there have been a number of issues in this area, there's infrastructure issues in this area, there's reasonable concerns about the quality of and width of the streets and whether we can handle the traffic and a number of other issues that have been very carefully outlined, I think, in this proposal. Happy to hear from neighbors if they'd like to speak, but really, I would really like to see a community meeting occur in which the neighbors have an opportunity to have their specific concerns addressed, and then give the applicant an opportunity to then make adjustments after hearing that feedback to what's been asked. And so I'm happy to join in those meetings, happy to come to those meetings as much as you want, happy to visit with the neighbors independently or visit with the applicant independently, however I can be helpful in us reaching a mutually agreeable resolution of this issue. So appreciate you being here and hearing that. Happy to hear from neighbors if there's anyone that would like to be heard on this item.
Is this the firewood debacle
It is.
from 2 years ago?
Same, I guess, is it the same, is it the same property?
Yes.
Okay.
And the storm erosion is tearing our property up. But just to step back a minute, my name for the record is Jana Knoll, and I represent the residents that are dependent on North Hassett Road, not street, okay, to totally access. Our land is at the bottom of the hill. It's been in our family for generations. My sister, who teaches at-risk kids through Putnam City Schools, can't even get out of our property. We cannot safely access our property because of the stormwater drainage. It failed the permit. We also have significant road issues. And we are just simply, for today's purposes, I would like you to know that we have been elated to have new neighbors. My sister stopped and introduced herself to Mr. and Mrs. Hayes, extended a warm welcome, anything we could do. She was told that they were going to build their family dream home. We spread that through our community. Everybody was going, when can we meet them and everything. In the interim, this owner, previous owner, was coming back into their barn after the property had sold, and we also had a break-in at the intersection of 100th Street and Hassett Street, and I will differentiate those two in just a moment. I tracked their number down through their realtor, conveyed to him we were excited, and to make a long story short, my sister spoke with them. Again, it was conveyed to us as their family home. Unfortunately, out of the blue, one family home turned into 4 family homes on a lot that is not compatible with Oklahoma plan compatibility, gross land compatibility. But for today's purposes, just quickly, we do not believe this case even has merit to be before this commission at this point, and let me just briefly share with you why. I know emotions are high. We realize that there is going to be development in our area, and we're not against that. But, Mr. Pennington, I know you know what we've been through. And again, the staff has failed us. This application should have never reached this point because it does not meet the and I will quote, or this is based on the laws. I'm not arguing on emotions. I'm arguing on the subdivision codes and the Oklahoma City municipal codes. And let me just quickly say here, the infrastructure is not in place. They're wanting to wedge 4 homes crammed in between 2 dead-end, no more than 20 feet, private drives, and start development for 4 projects. And here's the real dilemma that totally negates this, why it should not have been brought to this position, or to this level. They are conflating North Hassett Street with North Hassett Road. And my father built this road to build our family home. This land's been in our family for almost 100 years. We were the only people on, and he blacktopped it and paved it and maintained it almost all of his life. This road is not recognized by the city as an authorized road. That negates immediately any move to have brought this even to this status right here for you to hear it. But even more than that, if they hadn't asked for this lot split, it would have given administrative approval to the city staff to have authorized it, again, in violation, and Mr. Pennington, I know you know what I'm talking about, the codes that are there to protect us. So let me just very quickly, because I know the time is limited. The intent of this deed classification says in the subdivision codes, the subdivision can satisfy these regulations and other applicable ordinances and statutes without the construction of streets, water facilities, storm drainage, which we're already having property damage issues, facilities or other improvements, except as to necessary to directly serve the created lots and to provide a direct connection to the existing and approved system. It is the intent of this provision to limit this classification to those cases where the improvements required by these regulations have been provided and such improvements have already been met, except for the extension just to the lots. So let's look here at our evidence to justify the conflation between these two. First of all, the application is totally misleading. You see that address up there, 10317 Hassett Street? That, and if I may, I don't know decorum, so I apologize. Can I just share the picture that we have here?
You can pass it up here.
Yes, sir. This is the intersection. This is the horrible condition of a 20-foot broken down crumbling road because the firewood company burned up over 5 acres of land to conceal what he was doing all the way down these easements. Unfortunately, the Hayeses, I feel for them. They've been victimized too, but this wasn't disclosed to them, but they are the property owners. And you know, no man is an island. That's the same that applies to land. No land is in isolation. They've now assumed this problem. So if you see this green sign, which designates city approved subdivision, that is Hassett Street. If you try to even put 10317 Hassett Road into the application for the Action Center, for the permit, the city has no clue who that even is. So that is our first. Do you need to see this any further? Or, okay. That's the first piece of evidence. Secondly, you look back to the application, it's misleading. On the side, it says Hassett Street, and the application says Hassett Street. But then, when you pull over the actual platting of these lots, and again, most of these lots, all of the area surrounding here, the compatibility index, the homes are on more than 5 acres. So they now, up here, says Hassett Road on these plots. And in addition to that, what's unique about this property is that this property is the origination point for all the stormwater damage. So in a variance, if you approve this, you are approving substandard lots based on an unapproved, undedicated, private road that has no authority. So now, all of a sudden, the new lot owners are exposed to property liability. There are liens against this property, and I brought that. $1,300 for abatement. There's 12 warrants out on zoning violations for this property. Unfortunately, the Hayeses have assumed this. There is 120 out on the stormwater quality. All of those lot owners now subject to being held liable for that. The roads, when we were going through with the stormwater, and I'll wrap this up real quick because I know, when we were going through with Charlie's and the stormwater was rushing around, the deed, and the city knows this, the deed is to the county. It was conveyed, and it's only 30 feet. They need 50 feet to even put a road in through here. And because it is an undesignated road, it's not been committed, nor any for future. It would take 60% of the property owners, and the property owners on those protest letters that you're reading own all those easements. Margot McCauley Fuller, and by the way, who had a question mark about they couldn't verify that, I have full authority. She lives in California. Los Angeles also has a home. This is $1 million property. Her entire south boundary will abut, and that entire fence line has been torn to shreds. There's still massive piles of contaminated mulch and waste piled up against it, and she's quite concerned. So please don't discount her comments. I'm fully authorized to speak for her.
Well,
So let me just wrap this up real quick. Here is the actual, let me see if I can get it, statement on the roads that comes out of the subdivision codes that would qualify this to even come forward. It can't really even qualify a deed application. The authorization of a road, an accepted road, as defined in the subdivision codes, basically states, let me see here real quickly, drop those. I'm sorry, I apologize here. That a private road, this is the definition of a private road. A private road, in order to be classified as regulated and authorized, is a private road that meets private road standards and the requirements of all the regulations, or a street that has been accepted for maintenance by the city and county. We've never been able to get any city county. So I called the county during the Charlie's Firewood ordeal to beg for somebody to please help us. And this is what the engineer, Eric Brandt, told me. Oklahoma County on May 17th, 2021 at 12:10 p.m. The county does own these easements, but they will not touch it. The county has run into similar situations with the city before. The county has tried on similar cases to give the easements back to the city so these roads can be brought up to a regulated standard, but the city doesn't want it. The county can't maintain it because the city statutes that won't permit jurisdiction. It's a gray area because the county can't set foot into the city because they don't have a county-city mutual agreement. The county can't get involved, the city won't get involved, and until these private roads are dedicated to the public or reserved for future dedication, property owners are caught in the middle.
And I appreciate those comments, and we're certainly concerned about the streets. We know, again, we've been dealing with the firewood issue before and the concerns about the infrastructure around the area. I would say let's remember here that the property owner has the right to request the ability to make the changes to the property that they want.
We fully do.
And so that is their purview to make that request. The city staff doesn't have any say over what requests property owners make of them. They just have to do that review. And to be clear about the lot split issue, yes, the city staff does have some administrative authority and to grant lot splits, but that's also outlined in the staff report. And I don't know if you had an opportunity
Yes,
to
I
read
do.
that staff report as well. And so I'd ask that you all visit with the applicant in good faith. I'm certainly going to speak with our municipal counsel's office about the issues regarding the streets and any legal obligations around that. I would just say it'd be a good idea to just come together, let's everyone come together and find a way forward. And I think that that's possible here, especially since there's no longer a place trying to create firewood. So I hope that I'm siding with optimism. And with further discussion can yield some better results. And just appreciate you all coming down here to be heard on this issue, and we'll certainly look forward to, hopefully we can get some resolution before the meeting, our next meeting, which is in December.
And just one final question, please, sir. Would it be possible after the meeting that we just touch base with you briefly
Yes.
to try to share this? But at this point, we can't take development and all that, and my major concern right now is we're going to have to, there's something has got to be done to stop that erosion. That's not right that we can't safely access our property. And you will see those diagrams, what we face. And there's got to be something done. And so we were respectfully asking that those issues be addressed first so that no further property damage and that we can get to and from safely our own property.
Well, certainly happy to continue the discussion on those issues, and thank you for coming down here.
Thank you to the commission.
We do have one other person signed up to speak, Mr. Daniel Morton, and knowing that we have heard some pretty extensive concerns about this, does Mr. Morton still want to be heard? Do you have any additional items? Okay, well, I think the motion then I think would be to continue this item to our next meeting on December 8th.
Okay. And I'm happy to make that motion. I do want to, so I looked up through the city's data portal, I looked up the pavement condition index that is on all city-owned maintained streets. It does indicate that Hassett Road is a City of Oklahoma street roadway from 100th Street north to just beyond north of Northeast 104th. So Joshua Drive to the west is not. It's a private drive. So.
Well, we have, what we've seen before is that there have been some issues with understanding exactly which streets are city streets and exactly which ones are not. So some further research may need to be done, but do appreciate that, at least to that initial look. But we had another issue with another similar situation in another part of Ward 7, and it turned out that the streets turned out to be private that we thought were public. So, I think this merits further investigation for sure.
Yeah, I don't even know.
Just say something there?
If we can actually, exactly because of the condition of the street.
Yeah, they're small.
With respect to Hassett Road going north, the city did
Your
just
name and address for the
surface, sorry?
Your name
My
and
name's
address,
Dr. Daniel Morton, 10500 Joshua Drive. The city, a couple of years ago, resurfaced the entire neighborhood, and they did not resurface that part of Hassett Road. They resurfaced Hassett Road going south from 100th and did nothing to Hassett Road going north. The deeds in the county clerk's office indicate that it belongs to the county of Oklahoma County.
Thank you. And we're going to have to continue to look into it.
December 8th?
December 8th.
Okay. Move to continue item DA-3-PH to the December 8th meeting.
The Commissioner Clare moves to continue item 21 DA3PH until the December 8th meeting of the Planning Commission. It's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes when available. Thank you. And certainly, again, happy to visit with the neighbors as well, too. We're in line for item 22.
Item 22 is case CE 1088, application to close all of the right-of-way of Northwest 14th Street between Block 2 and Block 3 of North Broadway Addition, located east of North Broadway Avenue and north of Northwest 13th Street at 24 Northwest 14th Street.
One last time, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. Here on behalf of the applicant, this is a companion item to what you saw last hearing with the project that was obviously much greater than this. This is the 14th Street piece that we had discussed briefly at that time. What we're seeking to do is take off from where the city left off and close and vacate the balance of 14th Street. We have gone back and forth multiple times this week with staff regarding TE number 2. TE number 1, we are in agreement with. TE number 2, we would propose the following that I have shown to Mr. Butler, Ms. Randall, Mr. Fairbrush. It states, applicant agrees to provide to the City of Oklahoma City an access easement across the applicant's property for the purpose of providing public access for pedestrians, cyclists, and passenger vehicles to and from a future public transit facility. The location of said easement will be generally located as noted in this exhibit. So what this exhibit is showing you is, of course, the 14th Street alignment is right here. The blue would represent the circulation pattern for the access easement, for the types of activity we referenced in the TE. It is worth noting that the blue that you see north of the 14th Street right-of-way is, potential access that doesn't exist now because the city, of course, closed 14th Street, and so right now it stops right here. So we're actually, I think, providing more circulation than they otherwise would have. And speaking with Mr. Fairbrush, one of the questions was raised about a potential pedestrian access further north than we show. We're happy to have those discussions between now and City Council. One of the things that we're facing is that the Regional Transit Authority is hopefully putting stops somewhere. Our project is moving quicker than their project is moving, and so it's a little bit difficult for us to account for this when they don't know where or if or when. And so I think what we're providing is frankly more than they have now. If the goal is to get pedestrians, cyclists, and vehicles to a potential stop along that railroad right-of-way, it's our belief that the TE provides just that. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So is this mutually agreed upon language in TE2? Are we all in agreement?
You'd have to look to your right and left.
You're in agreement? Everybody signs off on this.
I saw Susan
Can you
nodding
read it
her
one
head
more
up and
time
down.
so our commissioners have heard it?
I'm sorry?
Before I go to Commissioner Govine, can you read it one more time?
One more time. Applicant agrees to provide to the City of Oklahoma City an access easement across, and this was emailed to Mr. Butler today, but we can give you a copy as well. Okay. Applicant agrees to provide to the City of Oklahoma City an access easement across the applicant's property for the purpose of providing public access for pedestrians, cyclists, and passenger vehicles to and from a future public transit facility. Location of said easement will be generally located as noted in the provided exhibit. And of course, the quicker the RTA can get us information on where they're going to be, the more certainty we can give them on this access. But at a minimum, my belief is that what this language is doing is guaranteeing access to that future facility, both, or all three, pedestrian, cyclist, and vehicles.
Thank you. And I'd love it if one of you would speak on the record for this meeting about your concurrence, if that is what it is, or objection, if that's what it is. Either one of you,
Jason,
or both.
Would you like to, yeah, would you like to speak about it?
Hi, Jason Fairrush, representing the RTA as the interim executive director, and we are supportive of what's been proposed to this commission today, and appreciate the collaboration with those involved.
Listen, we would want that language in the closing ordinance itself. So we'll try to, whoever's ever drafting that ordinance, JJ, will want that language included in the closing ordinance.
Do we need to take any action in this application to ensure that that occurs?
I think as long as it's subject to the TE as read, then that's the language that we'll put in.
Okay.
JJ or whoever's next.
We're not getting rid of JJ. We love JJ.
He's getting rid of the city.
Commissioner Govine, this is in your ward.
Sure. Well, that made my job a little bit easier. We've gone back and forth on the language a number of times on this, and that is exactly what I was emailed, that I believe is also reasonable, shows good intent by the applicant to work with the city, and I'm glad that the city agrees. I didn't have any other concerns about the vacation. We are basing it on, I do have a question for discussion that I might like input from others on, is we're basing it on an exhibit that's noted in blue, a general proposal, not subject to some back and forth, of course. Is that also good?
That level of specificity.
Yeah, is that level
sufficient?
of specificity combined with the language together to those, is it necessary to sort of combine that exhibit so that stays with the language?
I'm not sure about the exhibit. That's the first I've seen of the exhibit, but I think we could incorporate that some way and we would have those discussions at the vacation stage if there was any leeway, if we need to change it a little bit. I mean, because that, like I say, that's not exactly as far as the width and dimensions and all that kind of stuff. So I think those things are going to have to be determined at a later date at the vacation stage to put in the journal entry.
Just one question to clarify. Am I correct in understanding, I think what Mark had said earlier today, that the portion of the blue line that is east of that hotel, in other words, right in the middle of 14th Street, that is actually within the railroad right-of-way, is that correct? The property line is the black line that is...
Mark Zitzel with Johnson & Associates, address is 1 East Sheridan Avenue. That's correct. Our goal in initially laying this out was that we'd be able to use some of that. You can see our property on the south end jogs back in. So we'll have to work through that. If we can't, that drive is just going to shift back into our client's property, and that's partially why we've said general. When we get to the point that we've done engineering, we've got plans in, we can define an actual legal description with exhibit. This, I think, made everyone comfortable, and this is the circulation pattern, and we've agreed to that. Now, it may shift a couple feet here or there, but this was to get the point across.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions or concerns from commissioners?
Commissioner Powers, I'm looking to my land use attorney over there.
No, I think, it's not reasonable to expect a higher level of specificity at this stage. Every piece of it is in motion, the RTA's piece, the city's piece, the developer's piece. It's going to have to be a little further along before it gets that precise. So I'm comfortable with this.
Okay.
I appreciate you guys putting something on paper for us to see what you are willing to do.
And you all were hustling in the background while we were still continuing on with the commission's business. It was pretty funny to watch the meetings going on here to work this out. So
Spent more hours on this combination of 20 words than I did anything else this week.
You're earning that pay today.
So in that case, I would move to recommend approval of CE 1088.
The motion by Commissioner Govine is to recommend approval of CE 1088 to City Council.
With the modified
With
TE
the
number 2.
modified TE number 2 as read into the record. It has been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes when available. And the motion passes. And I believe we've reached the end of our agenda unless did we move something to the end? No? No, we didn't. We heard everything. Okay. I'm really surprised we were able to reach a conclusion on that. I was very worried we were going to have a long and dragged out battle among commissioners to figure out how to work this language out. So I'm very pleased on this Thursday. I believe having reached the end of our separate items to be heard, we're on to additional items. There are none. Communications and reports. First, Planning Commission committees. Any committee reports? Any hearing from Planning Commission members? Commissioner Clare?
Nothing from me.
Commissioner Powers? Commissioner Fraley? Commissioner Privet? Are you enjoying having your every other Thursdays back since we put Commissioner Noble on the case on the BOA?
More on that Thursday. I don't know. I think I wrote 6 or 7 legal descriptions last Thursday, so. It's trading one thing for the other, I guess.
Okay.
It's all right.
Well, you can go back anytime, apparently.
No, I'm sure. I think they've got 60 cases, so have fun with that, man. Don.
All right.
Or so. It shouldn't be like that going forward, but I think I have a little backlog.
Commissioner Noble is learning so much about the BOA process.
What do you think about home sharing?
Home sharing.
Do you have any strong opinions about that?
He will next year.
I think we're picking on him too much considering we just asked him to join. Like, maybe we should wait and let him get comfortable first before we start the jokes.
I would like to thank Commissioner Noble for taking the reins at the BOA, just from one planning commissioner to another.
That is so kind. Anything from you, Commissioner Hinkle? Commissioner Govine? No. Commissioner Noble? Nothing from me, I don't think. Planning Department?
Just mention that we did have some meetings on the code update last week, and we had some successful meetings, well-received code update information. So we got into the meat of the code, which we would have liked to have done a couple years ago, but the sign code got put up front, which is fine. But here we are doing urban medium, and so we're excited to get into that. And we met with focus groups from neighborhoods, neighborhood leaders, developers, and also the stakeholder advisory team for the code update. And was, as I said, well received, and we've got some good feedback, which we're working on. We'll be moving at a faster pace in terms of what's going to be coming out. So we're excited to kind of get into the like I said, the meat of the process. And so first quarter of next year, we'll be just having more discussions about the other zoning districts in urban medium. We covered one with a preview of the second, kind of the lower density, single dwelling style development. And we'll be getting into more of that first quarter of next year. So looking forward to engaging those of you on the stakeholder advisory team, which actually I think we probably need to get a couple new planning commissioners on since we've lost 2 of our members that were on that, so we will get on that. And also those of you on the development, or the Development Review Committee, Development Regulations Committee, thank you. Which I believe is Mr. Hinkle and Ace.
Well, Commissioner Highsmith is not on anymore, so is it Commissioner Clare?
Do we have a third?
Do we have any volunteers?
I feel like I volunteered for a committee, but I've never received any
Sounds
kind
like it's
of
Commissioner
formal
Govine.
Communications.
Noted. So we've
Yeah,
got
he's
the
in.
trio again. Okay, great.
And so you need 2 more members for the code update, but I guess you'll send something out?
Yeah, that's something that it's a mayor appointment, so kind of an informal mayor appointment. So we will get on that. Any volunteers? So I think ASO was on that as well, and let's see, so Janice, Asa, and Scott were on that. Scott, they still want to stay on it. Exactly.
Oh, gotcha.
But
Well,
it
that's
would-
good that they're both still on it.
Yes.
Okay.
So if there are volunteers, or we could have the same folks on it if you,
Is this a 2-for-1 deal or so? So let me get it straight. No, I just want to be clear on so the last, we're talking about two different committees here, but I am happy, I would like to be involved in the zoning.
The code
Is that
update?
what you're-
I was trying to get you to volunteer yourself before you got the details, but you get the details
Trying to
now.
figure out what I'm volunteering for, but yes, I'm certainly
So-
willing to help.
So the DRC is something that we typically bring regulation, code update changes, whether minor or major, to the planning, or to the DRC, before it actually goes to the Planning Commission. And it's an opportunity for interested parties, typically the development sector, to come and come to this meeting and be heard before it actually comes to this body. So it meets from time to time, not frequently, but it'll obviously have a greater role going forward with the code update, and we're going to bring different modules of the code forward to it as we move along. The stakeholder advisory team is a larger group of interested parties as well, but these are folks from the development community, from neighborhoods, just different interests that have a stake or an interest in the development code itself. And we met with them for a couple hours last week. They had a heavy involvement in the development of the sign ordinance. I think we met 3 or 4 times, maybe more. But it's an opportunity to get kind of in-depth into the code update and understand that, and be able to give feedback, and importantly also to hear the feedback that's coming from other members of the community, other stakeholders, and weigh in on that. So does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, yes. If I can be of assistance on either or both of those, I'm willing to, and would be happy to volunteer.
I do have something I wanted to say about the sign code update. It sounds to me as if what will eventually be presented is going to be significantly different than what we looked at the first time it came to us. Don't know whether City Council will choose to send it back to us before they vote on it. But if they don't, I would at least like us to be briefed. I really would prefer that it come back to us if it's going to be substantially different.
Me too. I would think that would be the most fair process, but I mean, I don't know if we have any authority to dictate that.
Well, I guess from my perspective, it likely won't be substantially different. There are 2 issues that are out there right now. One is the murals, and we haven't had our listening sessions yet, but the mural artists would like less regulation. So that would be a fairly simple change. Now, I mean, I guess it depends on if you're talking about the impact or I mean, you remove a couple of words in the murals ordinance and it's vastly, you go from having what right now is a simplified process over the current process. So the proposed code is much easier. They no longer have to go to the Arts Commission for the vast majority of murals. I think what some folks would like is not to have any sign permit at all. They just go and paint.
As would every sign company.
Yeah. So if it ends up being the situation, for example, where there's no permits required except in certain circumstances, to me that would be a fairly minor change to the overall sign code, in my opinion, or something along those lines, and we'll see what the outcome is. But that is one option. The other issue is the ACLU desire to have some amendments within the right-of-way. And so both of those are actually just kind of secondary, I guess, elements of the sign code. Of course, I would say the main part of the sign code is is all the signs on buildings and billboards and pole signs and monument signs and all that that makes up 99% of the signage we see in the city. But as we've all seen, it's election season and we see all these little signs everywhere. So those two, the murals and I mean, to be frank, we barely discussed at all the right-of-way issue because we're just bringing it in from the old code. It's exactly the same as it was and has been for decades. So that was just a very minor, it's literally one sentence in the sign code. But it could have an impact, you know, if we end up allowing those with some restrictions related to, for example, as the ACLU proposed, some kind of spacing, well, I don't want to quote them exactly, but they propose some solutions. We're thinking about what might be appropriate. So we haven't discussed really whether or not it would come back to the Planning Commission, but hopefully that is enlightening in terms of what is likely to change.
Certainly helpful. I don't think it changed any minds about wanting it to come back, but I mean, regardless of whether it's a minor change or a major change, I don't know that changes the process aspect of whether or not it comes back to us. So I guess maybe, and I don't know, you don't have to resolve it today, but it would be nice for us to at least understand whether or not that could happen. And maybe this is something we should be lobbying, like I tell people all the time, that we should be lobbying our city council members to do. So that's certainly an option, but appreciate a better understanding of what is being proposed now. I'm concerned that the sign code update has been operating too fast, and I think we should just slow the entire process down a little bit. And 2 years and 2.5 years, 3 years is just not enough.
Yeah, let's not
So,
be hasty.
okay. I did, before we get to the municipal counselor's office, I neglected in my own report, it is my wife's birthday, so happy birthday. She usually watches the Planning Commission meetings, so I need to make sure that I have said that on the record, so happy birthday. Municipal counselor's office.
Nothing.
Citizens to be heard. All right, seeing none, we've reached the end of our agenda, and we are adjourned.